Okay, and we are going to start our next talk. Please welcome Ken Suzuki of SmartNews. Welcome, Ken. And we're really excited to hear Ken will be giving a talk on plural money via social computing. And pass it off to you, Ken.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Ken Suzuki. So today, I'd like to talk about open problems toward the realization of Nameraka society. It's a different title, sorry. And let me introduce myself. I'm a founder and executive chair of SmartNews. How many people actually use SmartNews? Oh, thank you so much. So I'm also a researcher, and I wrote a book more than 10 years ago, The Nameraka Society and Its Enemies. And how many people know about this book? Wow, more than SmartNews. It's surprising. So the Nameraka Society and its enemies tries to design social systems using information technology 300 years in the future. I published this book in 2013. The book was an aggregation of 13 years research and ideas before the publication. The first article, Treasure Box of Net Community Currencies, was published in NAM Generation in 2001, where I proposed a new currency system called Pixie for the first time. Then it became a concept of Nameraka around 2005. Anyway, a key question of this book is how is it possible to live in this complex world while maintaining its complexity? In this world, we are not allowed to live in a complex way, and we have to simplify ourselves in order to live. I'm trying to solve this problem. One of the reasons that led me to think deeply about this issue is the Berlin Wall. In 1989, I went to East Berlin through Checkpoint Charlie as a school trip. I was so shocked to learn that just a few months ago, someone was shot and killed trying to cross the border. And several months later, the Berlin Wall fell. Why are there walls in the world? Why do human beings distinguish each other as friends and foes, competing for resources? Could we have a smoother society? When you look at the world today, the war between Ukraine and Russia, or conflict between Gaza and Israel, the power of violence that creates wars has not changed. The Berlin Wall is a symbol of the Cold War. But the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 triggered a number of democratic movements around the world. The VDEM index is an index of degree of democracy in countries all around the world. And the graph shows a large increase in the late 1980s at the collapse of the Cold War. And then, however, it flattened out after that and rapidly worsened from 2010, returning to the level of the late Cold War period. It may get worse in the future. In 1989, two events occurred independently. One was the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the other was the invention of the World Wide Web. These two events led to two globalizations. The internet allowed information to transcend national borders, and capitals and economies to transcend national borders as well. However, even though information was networked and goods and capital from all over the world were connected and made more efficient, the political system did not change at all. Even though the disparity in the world as a whole decreased, the disparity within developed countries widened, and the people were born poorer than their parents' generations. This is where political polarization happened. And as a reaction to globalization, divisions inside and outside the country have accelerated. Some people said that globalization would lead to the flat society. In fact, that did not happen. And the flat world is not interesting due to the lack of diversity. On the other hand, what about the stepped society, divided into two camps that do not intersect? A divided situation we see in the world now. And what about Nameraka society? Nameraka means smooth in English. In a Nameraka society, one person is allowed an in-between status, such as both American and Japanese identities in one person. In Nameraka society, such people are the majority. It is a society where diversity increases dramatically, and as a result, everyone is a minority. However, the world is not moving toward an Nameraka society. We are creating borders, enclosing resources, and fighting each other. Something is missing. I have decided to consider a root cause of this problem. And this is a key perspective. The world is a network of relationships. However, people build walls, enclose resources, and create enemies and allies. Why? The answer is cell. I have a question for you. Are you a single cell or a multicellular organism? Please raise your hand if you believe you are a multicellular organism. Okay, 60%, okay. Please raise your hand if you believe you are a single cell organism. Oh, no one. What is other 5 people? But so I can see the 60 trillion cells of all of you are cell. And then, so you are composed of 60 trillion cells and grown from a single cell. So we tend to forget that we are made up of cells. I think the origin of the creation of boundaries is a cell. The most incisive work pointed this out was done 50 years ago by Francisco Varela. The cell membrane is very important for the creation of a network of self-sustaining chemical reactions. A computer simulation of the interaction of just 3 chemicals. This creates a kind of membrane as an emergent property. The presence of that membrane keeps the resource chemicals inside the membrane and helps maintain the membrane itself. So why do we have a membrane? It is to maintain the membrane. Here is the structure that is self-purpose. How can an organization be self-purpose? Why is there a country? It is to maintain the country. This is the same structure. From a network, there emerges membrane and the nucleus. The role of nucleus is control the complex large degree of freedom by small degree of freedom. Nucleus has DNA to control a whole body. Let's look back at 4 billion years of life evolution. Multicellular organism evolved from a single cell. But it also had a nucleus and membrane. Nervous system is for body control, and the sense of ownership is a kind of membrane. Membrane and the nuclei recur in the history of life. This is because life is made up of cells. Society also has a membrane and a nucleus because society is the outcome of evolution of life. But the life has limitations as well as possibilities. That is cognitive limit. Life created its own membrane, as well as inside and outside of the membrane. The inside of the membrane is called the body, and the outside of membrane is called environment. In a world without membrane, there would be no body and no environment. The body must recognize and adapt to its environment to survive, but its cognitive resources inside the body are limited. For example, the information processing capacity in the brain is capped. Therefore, we have come to recognize the world is simplified way. This is the cognitive limitation. However, humans have broken through this limit by creating various artifacts between the body and the environment. Languages, architectures, and markets are some of these artifacts. The question is how much information technology, a new artifact created by mankind, can break through this limit. As I explained, we have to think about society from life. And I wondered if we could update the monetary system, the voting system, legal system, and military system, and so on, over the next 300 years. This is the structure of this book. Now let's look at the second chapter, the pixie of the monetary system. I will explain the effect of pixie by manga. In a normal currency system called sexy, there is a bad doctor on the left-hand side and a good doctor on the right-hand side. The most profitable way is prescribing medication without curing patients. The bad doctor makes profit. For good doctor, curing patient in 1 to 2 visits means less profit. Essentially, the better the doctor, the more difficult it is to sustain his business. If pixie is introduced, income from treated patient propagates and returns. The currency held by patients who are not cured gradually decreased in value. Bad doctors naturally withdraw. But patients who were cured return values to the good doctor. Good doctors' management situation have improved. How can we calculate the value propagation? If there are only 3 people at the left-hand figure, it's easy to calculate the propagation value by multiplying 2 values like this. But if there are millions of people, how do you do that? By using matrix. So contribution to the society is calculated as eigenvector, and it corresponds to the purchasing power. This method is close to the Google PageRank algorithm. Imagine the world that all transactions are treated as an investment in kind. There is no room to have exploitation because all labor is treated as investment. Next is a virtual company. If you want to make the membrane a more permeated network, a company must be virtualized. You can add a company in a matrix, but this component is disbanded by an operation. At Pixie World, a company is virtual. A company is just an interface for distributions. There is no accumulation of capital inside a company. In 2009, I proposed a divisional democracy, a type of liquid democracy. Current political system is not so dynamic because of the existence of political parties and interest groups. These intermediate organizations ignore minority interest inside the organization. Then, actual political decisions are made by a few people. A vote can be split and delegated to two or more parties or people. Further delegation is possible and you can create a loop. By doing this, intermediate organizations are virtualized and become dynamic. I coined this system as divisional democracy because you can split a vote to different opinions or people. In order to justify this, you need to admit there are multiple agents inside one person. It's easy to understand if you admire multiple cells as an agent inside. Originally, individual is composed of im plus dividual. Im means not, and dividual means divisible. In Drew's article, it said that individuals have become dividuals. From this perspective, we must reconsider democracy. When I vote, I may ignore minority opinion of an agent inside myself. In 2005, I came up with the idea of cyberlang and a constructive social contract. Cyberlang is a kind of XML by which both machine and humans can read and write. It can be executed automatically as a contract. This idea is very close to the smart contract. Using cyberlang, we might be able to create a social contracts in a constructive way because almost no one actually has agreement on a social contract yet. It's not real now. The good point of social contract is people can change the government anytime by changing the contract. You don't have to use the right of revolution. The right of contract is enough to change. So this is a key question. Is it possible to create a government that does not require a locked right of revolution? Even if we create a government in a constructive way, there is another problem. Friend and enemy distinction is a key concept introduced by German political philosopher Carl Schmitt. Carl Schmitt defined the political as an eternal tendency of human collectives to identify each other as enemies at a state of exception. Enemy is defined as public enemy, which means the situation where they kill people because their nation orders them to do it. In a total war situation, the nation state uses all resources in a country to win the war. As a result, freedom and diversity are extremely limited. This is a step society and opposite of Nameraka society. So if you look at a chart of public economics, national defense is categorized as a public good. But I think this is misleading. There is a membership to access national defense. People who have an enemy's nationality cannot access the good. Therefore, it's excludable. National defense may be club good. If we draw an FTC theme to describe it, how is it possible to make a national defense truly a public good? Is a question we should be solving over the next few hundred years. It will take about 300 years for the social system to fundamentally evolve. The reason is our experience with Gutenberg's typesetting printing, which was the last information revolution. It took over 300 years for Rousseau to write his theory of social contract and for the French Revolution to occur. Maybe we still don't really know how to use the tools of information technology. We, our generation, have a responsibility to update our society. If you want to know more about Nameraka society, please read my book. So we have some stock today, if you want. But this is written in Japanese, so some English information is available on our website. We are preparing to publish an academic article about democracy with researchers of MIT. Please check it out. Thank you so much.